photograph. Yeah. Exactly right.
Hello. We will welcome you to our 25 June council meeting. Now I ask Councilman Green if he will do the invocation and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Let us pray. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessing of this day and for every day that you allow us to be here on your wonderful creation. We ask that you be with those who are sick, bereaved because of loss of loved ones, or are sad for any reason. Put your comforting arms around them and give them peace as only you can. We ask that you be with those in service of our country and their families. We ask that you guide us in this deliverance, that we may do what is best for all the citizens of Poquoson. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now we have special presentations.
Mr. Vice Mayor, we have a number of special presentations tonight. We have a lot to celebrate. And the first, and we're very thankful that our new president of Thomas Nelson Community College, Dr. John Dever, is here. And introducing him is Poquoson resident and TNCC board member Everett Jordan, wearing his Poquoson pin.
Good evening. I don't think I've formally ever thanked the council for appointing me to represent the city on the board at Thomas Nelson Community College. I replaced Dr. Vernal, and it's been a very rewarding experience in my life. I believe I'm in my third year on the board as a member, and it's been truly an experience to learn more about Thomas Nelson Community College and really the value that Thomas Nelson Community College brings to the entire Hampton Roads community. It is truly our community's college. It's my pleasure this evening to introduce to you Dr. John T. Dever. Last year, I had the good fortune to be selected as a representative of the board to work with the Virginia Community College system in Richmond and select the next president of Thomas Nelson Community College. Really a daunting task with so many highly qualified individuals. But as a result of that process, Dr. Dever was selected to become the 9th president of Thomas Nelson Community College, beginning October 1st, 2011. Dr. Dever has a very strong career as an educator with over 40 years of experience in education. And I'll stress to you that Dr. Dever has extremely strong local ties to our community. Prior to coming to Thomas Nelson this time, he served as Executive Vice President for Academic and Student Services at Northern Virginia Community College, and he was there for 7 years. Prior to that assignment, Dr. Dever was Vice President for Academic and Student Affairs at Tidewater Community College. Prior to that, he was Dean of Instruction and Student Services at Blue Ridge Community College. And I'm happy to say, prior to that, he served at Thomas Nelson Community College for 20 years as Professor of English and Chair of the Communications and Humanities Division of the college. And during that entire time, Dr. Dever and his wife Peggy maintained their residence in Newport News, which is rewarding, I think, to think that we have a president of Thomas Nelson that never surrendered his roots to the Virginia Peninsula. He stayed true to us, even when he was making that journey to Northern Virginia every Sunday night. So I think that tells you something about Dr. Dever. He has his wife Peggy and John have 2 children and 2 grandchildren. He's one up on me, but I hope to catch up on him. I think that he's uniquely qualified to oversee our community's college. Even while working in Northern Virginia, as I say, he stayed here, which has allowed him to become very familiar with our community, as well as Hampton, Newport News, Williamsburg, and the surrounding communities that become the home base for Thomas Nelson. Dr. Dever is extremely knowledgeable of NASA and Newport News Shipbuilding, among many other companies locally, and the needs in regards to workforce development as well. And it is really my pleasure this evening to introduce formally Dr. John T. Dever. With him is Charles Nurnberger, who is Vice President of Financial and Administration, and Cynthia Galloway as well, who is Vice President. And Cynthia, it slips me, but I know that you're Vice President of our foundation.
Institutional advancement.
And institutional advancement. So obviously we have a strong staff at Thomas Nelson, and it really is my pleasure this evening to introduce you to Dr. Dever. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Everett, for that introduction. Members of the council, Mr. Wheeler, members of the city staff, thank you so much for having us here this evening to talk about the college and to give you an update on what's occurring at Thomas Nelson Community College. I hope this is the first of what will be regular periodic meetings to come before you and to keep you informed about the college. I want you to know that Thomas Nelson continues to serve the peninsula through the two main components of its mission. One, providing baccalaureate preparation for those students who come to us for the first 2 years of their baccalaureate education before transferring to universities. And two, providing education and training for those who are seeking to directly enter or advance in the workforce. We do this with a commitment to instructional excellence, to ready access for all those who can benefit from our programs, and to keeping the cost of higher education affordable. We also carry out our mission with the strong conviction that our work benefits not only the individual student, but also strengthens the social, economic, cultural, and civic fabric of our communities. We're all better off when everyone has the opportunity to realize his or her full potential for education and for career advancement. I think this was well put in a recent editorial that appeared in the Daily Press. I'm sure many of you saw it. It appeared 2 weeks ago, and it was entitled, "Will We Ever Learn? The challenge of making higher education more accessible can't be ignored." And if I could just quote a few lines from it. One thing is clear. We need public universities willing to take a fresh look at addressing the demand for affordable post-high school programs that better prepare today's students for the workforce. Affordable higher education is good economic policy. Andrew Carnavelli of the Georgetown University Center on Education and the Workforce, writing for the Chronicle of Higher Education, estimates that by 2025, the U.S. will need 20 million more 2- and 4-year college graduates. Without them, we will be unable to staff new businesses or make technological advances needed to compete in the global marketplace. Since the early 1980s, the demand for workers with some post-high school learning has grown by 3% per year, but the supply of college graduates has only grown by 1% per year. And we need not only college graduates, we need graduates with the skills needed to fill the projected openings in high-growth sectors like life sciences, technology, energy, and healthcare. Some students may find a 2-year program or trade school can best supply this training. Honestly, they didn't ask me to write it for them. They did a great job there, I think, speaking to the very mission that Thomas Nelson Community College has played and continues to play here on the Virginia Peninsula. Now, as a whole, the college now serves over 16,000 students annually, and that's in our credit program, and over 13,000 students in non-credit workforce development programs each year. More specifically, During fall 2011, we enrolled 257 credit students who are residents of Poquoson. We count them one by one. In conjunction with Poquoson City Public Schools, we serve 34 students through dual enrollment opportunities offered in the high school or at the college. As you know, dual enrollment gives students a leg up once they graduate and enter the community college or university because they take courses that receive both high school credit and college credit at the same time. Now, as you're no doubt aware, Thomas Nelson's activities in workforce development are particularly important to the peninsula. Along with Councilman Krieger, who I see is not here this evening, Thomas Nelson is very active in all aspects of the Peninsula Council for Workforce Development. As you know, Councilman Krieger represents the city on there, and we're frequently together during the meetings of that group. During the past fall, in conjunction with the Council for Workforce Development and the Virginia Community College System, we issued a major report called Skills to Succeed Inventory, Virginia Peninsula Career Pathways in Advanced and Precision Manufacturing Technologies. This report had in-depth research done with 14 top companies in our region on major job openings expected in 11 career fields over the next 5 years. The results? Some 11,000 openings are expected in those fields, and Thomas Nelson is working with the companies, with other education and training providers, and with the Workforce Council to ensure that we're positioned to provide the skilled workers to meet this need. You may know that at the college, to meet the need for welders, we have established a precision welding center there. We've got 36 booths, and over 600 students have gone through that process and have then been employed in that high-demand field by the employers who need them. In conjunction with Newport News Shipbuilding, the Virginia Community College System, and 4 other community colleges in our region, Thomas Nelson has taken the lead recently in setting up an extensive program in marine electrician training. And we're now in the planning stages for an additional training program in coding specialists and surface prep technicians. Of course, we've got a long history of partnership in workforce development with Newport News Shipbuilding, both in the apprentice school, headed by Mr. Jordan. We're very fortunate to have him on our board because he can look at it both ways. He can give us the company perspective, but he can also take the college perspective and help us communicate to the company with that view. And it's finding out how we mesh together that's so important. So we work both long-term with the apprentice school and with many of the skilled trades there. And with the current construction of the new apprentice school, we've been in very constructive and productive talks with Newport News Shipbuilding, reaffirming our relationship and talking about where do we go from here with some very good plans in the work. Another major relationship we had was with Cannon, Virginia, since 2008, and since the Cannon plan for expansion that was announced then. We've operated the Cannon Connect recruitment assessment pre- and post-hiring pipeline, and that's delivered more than 500 well-prepared employees for that very important employer whose needs are very technologically advanced. Likewise, we have a long-standing relationship with NASA Langley Research Center, providing them with a strong group of highly skilled technicians through the co-op program, which allows them to both pursue their education and work for pay at that time. After receiving their associate degree, these students have a well-defined career pathway that then takes them through what's called the Space Tech certification administered by the National Science Foundation, then on to an apprenticeship program at NASA, and finally a bachelor's degree at Old Dominion University in either mechanical or electrical engineering technology. For this, NASA and Thomas Nelson recently received the National High-Tech Innovation Program Award for our work that we do together. In the area of culture, I'm pleased to note the close relationship between the college and the city through our performing arts program offered at the Mary T. Christian Auditorium in Templin Hall at our Hampton campus. I think, as you know, the Poquoson Island Players use that as their location for putting on plays. We're very happy to have that strong relationship with them. And many members of the community also participate in the programs and the productions that we offer to the college, including the recently just finished and truly outstanding Sound of Music. That's our programs and the like. I'd like to conclude by saying a word about funding. As you know, the main funding from the college comes from two sources: the general fund from the Commonwealth of Virginia and the tuition and fees paid by our students. And as is true with so much of higher education, less and less is coming from the general fund and more is being paid in tuition and fees by our students. But we may remain deeply committed to keeping that education affordable. We are just over a third of what it costs for the average cost for a public four-year college in Virginia. And a student could get a full year of education at Thomas Nelson, half their degree, a full year of education for just under $3,800, which I think you know in today's economy is quite a bargain. So we do that. But let me also stress that the localities play a very important role in our funding as well. Although the major costs are borne, again, by the state and by the students and their parents. There was a grand bargain struck back in the 1960s when the Virginia Community College was established. Mills Godwin was governor, and they set up the 23 colleges at that time. And they said that the localities would be responsible for the site that the college would be on. The maintenance of that site and the ongoing improvement of the site would be the responsibility of the localities, while the Commonwealth would take care of the buildings themselves, but not the site work. So we work with you each year on, and the other localities, on that funding that we have. We have, of course, a master plan and a capital improvement plan. That's something that we take before our local college board, and that's reviewed and approved by them. And, of course, Mr. Jordan is part of that effort as your appointed representative. Each year, Vice President Nurnberger works with Mr. Wheeler, and they talk about how the formulas are done, what the other localities are doing, what the proper share is, and I'm very pleased to say that Poquoson has always been a very reliable and steady partner in providing that funding. So it's very important for us that we have that, and we thank you a great deal for it. I believe that you'll find the benefits provided by Thomas Nelson Community College to be well worth the investment that you're making to ensure that our citizens have the affordable access to the opportunities for higher education and workforce education and training that prepares them for the careers of the 21st century and beyond. So again, thank you so much for that. If you have any questions or comments, I'd certainly be glad to receive those.
Question. We certainly do appreciate you coming out and talking to us. We, as a community, understand what Thomas Nelson does for us, and I think you touched nearly everyone in the city. I know my entire family has taken at least one, if not more, classes at Thomas Nelson at some time.
I hope they had a good experience.
Oh, we did.
Okay, good.
So we certainly appreciate you coming out.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if you would join me at the podium to the side, we have a couple of special presentations. And Judy, if you would join me for the second one, please. In the city of Poquoson, and as the city manager, and as a citizen, and a father of citizens, and a husband of a citizen, I am deeply thankful for the people that work for us. They're all people. They're not numbers. They're not positions. They're people. And the people that we serve, if you'll indulge me, are people too. And our Public Works Department is a wonderful ambassador. For most people, they are our ambassador. They're the ones that cut the grass. They're the ones that fix the problems. They're the ones that make our ball fields look spectacular. They are the ones that we routinely call on to solve a problem that no one else is equipped to solve, and often a problem we haven't even defined or seen before. This has become quite regular for our Public Works Department. And Judy and I thought at some point we need to stop and start taking some formal notice of that. So with apologies to all of the outstanding work that is done previous, we're going to start now and really highlight some of the stories of these very special people. So with that, I'd like to invite Aaron McDaniel and Michael Gear. Come on up. And I want to read a letter to you. I promise it's not very long, but I couldn't say this any better, so I'm not going to try. It's a letter, it's an email to me from former council member Crosby Forrest. I'm going to read excerpts from it. Please relay my sincere thanks to 3 of your Public Works employees that assisted me today. The crew, led by Aaron McDaniel, retrieved a propeller shaft that I had lost while returning from Chesapeake. The shaft was valued at approximately $2,000. It had come off my trailer in Poquoson and was found by a crew on Wythe Creek Road. The only markings on the packaging was Bay Propeller in Chesapeake. They took the initiative to call Bay, as the owner and I were frantically searching the interstate from Chesapeake to Poquoson, and left a cell number for the parts owner to contact them. In light of today's economy, the scrap value of this part would have been a few $100s. Once I met the crew, I offered them a reward for being so honest. After several attempts to reward them repeatedly were declined, I thought that I would contact you and once again express that these employees' actions reminded me of why Poquoson is such a great place to live. I'm impressed by their honesty and their integrity, which should be commended, as they had no idea who the rightful owner was of that item. And I tell you what, these are only 2 of a platoon size, actually 2 platoon size, group of people that work for us every day doing these types of things. And they are not an exception, but they are exceptional. So gentlemen, we're going to add yours as the first 2 names on this trophy or this plaque that we will have in the Public Works Department, recognizing outstanding service to the citizens of our community. And thank you both. Take that back to Tom. I would say, once again, there are probably 20 stories that I know of since being city manager. Not all of them include these 2 guys, but frequently, of outstanding service. So there's no slight intended to those that came before, but we're going to try to do an even better job going forward in recognizing the special story of these special people. The second, I'm going to ask Judy to actually do the award, but among a crop of excellent people, there are people that rise above themselves even more so. And these are the folks that really, truly go beyond what anyone should expect of a public employee, and often more than you would expect even from citizens of our community. These are the people whose praises are seldom sung, but really make it happen. And with that, I'm going to ask Judy to introduce this story. This is a very touching story, and it's a very personal story for us. But again, it's the kind of story that comes with working here and living here.
Could I ask Jim Beach to come forward?
Jim did not want to.
I know he's hiding. But Jim is a very modest person. Last July, we received word in our office that a couple residing on Yorktown Road had not been seen for several days. Upon visiting the home, we found a 73-year-old man who was totally dehydrated, somewhat disoriented, and in immediate need of medical attention. His wife, though trying as hard as she could to take care of him, was approaching the very same condition. The gentleman was immediately transported to the hospital and received the medical attention he needed. Although the couple did not respond well to other services offered to them, they did trust city employees, particularly Jim Beach. Having no children and no other family in this area, they immediately adopted Jim and entrusted him with their most personal and financial needs. In fact, they were so comfortable with Jim, they'd call him at all hours of the night. After a brief rally, the gentleman was hospitalized again, and he remained there until his recent death. Jim was constantly there to assist he and his wife, and located a distant relative who was willing to come to Poquoson to help in the planning of the affairs of the couple. Most notable is the fact that Jim and his wife Sharon, who is in the audience tonight, opened their home to this relative and the wife, where they stayed until the gentleman passed away. The trust and the bond that developed between these families is unheard of. Because of Jim and Sharon, this gentleman was given the very special recognition he earned and deserved after many years of distinguished service and being the recipient of many honors and awards. Excuse me. Keep in mind that none of these actions are included in Jim's job description. He cared for this couple out of pure concern and a desire to help a family in need. Jim truly is deserving of the city's first humanitarian award for these actions.
I didn't do this alone. My wife was very helpful. This lady right here deserves a lot of credit. She did a lot for this family. Bob Speechley, Graham Wilson have been a big help. And this past weekend, Graham's wife and kids were there. So it's been a big community effort. And the only thing I would warn is if a city employee gets a call to go tell somebody to get the grass cut, be sure to do a good check before you before you get involved. It can get extenuating. But it was an experience, and it's been an adventure. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
I can't follow that, but I think I need to. I'm real happy this evening to introduce to you and to the community several new employees, and you'll see a theme here. You'll see a mix of full-time, paid professionals, auxiliaries, and interns. We are making the best out of all the free or reduced cost help we can get, in addition to taking advantage of all the positions that we have. So Cliff, if I could ask Chief Bowen to come forward and introduce his 3 new officers, 2 police officers and 1 auxiliary police officer.
Ladies and gentlemen, on June 4th, I had the opportunity to attend the graduation of the Basic Law Enforcement Academy class from Hampton Roads Regional Training Academy in Suffolk, where I was proud to watch 3 of our new employees walk across the stage and receive their pins, their badges, and their certificates. Throughout the last 19 weeks of rigorous training in topics such as law enforcement, criminal procedure, emergency vehicle operation, defensive tactics, and firearms training, I received numerous reports from the assistant director and the director of the 3 gentlemen that I'm going to introduce you to in just a moment, how outstanding they did in all of their practical exercises and their coursework. And I'm just proud as I can be to see the success that they've already had in the short time they've been with us. Currently, they are now in their field training process. They'll be riding around with senior members of the department doing training on the streets, so you will see them out and about. And it's just a great pleasure for me to introduce to you now the 3 new members of our department. I'll ask them to come forward. First is Police Officer Adam Stevens. Next is Auxiliary Officer Matt Marlowe, and you might recognize that name. His dad's a member of the department. That's Dwayne Marlowe's son. And John Foster, Officer John Foster. And Matt is an auxiliary officer, so he's doing this for free right now, and we are just privileged to have him here, and he's doing a great job, and that's a lot of effort to do for free of charge. So we have a great deal of respect for his commitment and his desire to do this work, and we're proud to say that he's also an applicant to the department. So we hope that we see him around here a lot more often in the future. But these are the 3 new members, and I just want you guys to get a chance to look at them. You will see them around, and just congratulate them on their recent success in the academy.
After the other 2 come up and just tell us where you're living right now and sort of what you'll be. I think we know what you'll be doing. But, about yourself.
As Chief said, my name is Adam Stevens. I live in Hampton. I've lived in Hampton for about the last 8.5 years. I'm originally from upstate New York. Again, about 8.5 years ago, my wife and I moved to the area. Worked for a family business for that time until, unfortunately, my family lost the business, and Chief was good enough to offer me a job. So it's an honor to be a part of the community in Poquoson. It reminds me so much of the small town that I grew up in upstate New York. I love it here. And in the time that I've spent here throughout living in Virginia, there's just something very familiar and just awesome about Poquoson. And again, it's an honor to be a part of this community. Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Council members, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Matthew Marlowe. As you all may know, my father's been a sergeant here for a number of years. I've been a member of this community since 1997. Went to high school here, and moved away for a brief period. Went to college, and then eventually found my way back, and was offered this phenomenal opportunity to become an auxiliary officer. And I really just look forward to serving my community that I've been a part of for a good long time now.
Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. My name is John Foster. I've been trying to become a police officer since probably 2007 when I got my associate's degree from Thomas Nelson, actually. Finally, Chief Bowen gave me the opportunity to become a police officer, something I've always wanted to do. I've been fortunate enough to have friends that are police officers that have personally worked with Chief Bowen for many years. They have nothing but great things to say about the city and the chief. So I was ecstatic to actually land a job in a city that everybody spoke quite highly of. I was born and raised in Newport News. That's where I've lived my whole life, and I still do live. But I do look forward to serving this community and the citizens of it, and the city council, and everybody in the city. Heard nothing but great things about the city from citizens alike, as well as people that have worked here and people that have known people like the chief that have worked here. So I just look forward to doing a good job for everyone here.
Outstanding. Thank you very much.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks, everybody. All right. Alan, would you mind coming up with Cecily, please? I wrote that down phonetically so I get it right. Cecily Brady is working with us in our engineering department. If you would just introduce her. And Cecily, if you've got anything you'd like to add, please do.
We are very lucky this summer to have Cecily Brady with us. She is a rising civil engineering sophomore, and usually when you get someone who's just had 1 year of engineering, there's a limit to what they can do, but Cecily is extremely smart. She's self-motivated, very positive, and she's been here for 2 weeks and made a huge difference. She's a volunteer this summer, so I can't tell you how much I appreciate her personally, and it's just been a great pleasure working with her. So,
What school?
want to tell?
Yeah, sure. I go to Northeastern University in Boston, but I'm from Newport News. I graduated from Warwick High School, the International Baccalaureate program there. And I'm really excited to be here.
I know she's glad to have the help. Well,
All right. Thank you. Welcome. Last up on this particular section is an introduction of our intern that's working with us, our finance department. Teresa, you want to come forward with Stephanie Harrison and briefly introduce her? And Stephanie, we welcome anything you have to say.
We have the fortunate honor of having Stephanie with us this summer. She is volunteering. She's a rising senior at Virginia Tech, majoring in mathematics and economics, and helping us get some of the finance projects going in the city. We're very lucky to have her.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. Anything you want to say? You're not required to say anything.
It's a great time to work with Teresa. I originally emailed the treasurer, and he hooked me up and was very helpful. Him and Teresa both have been great. It's been great to work with them and get the opportunity to work for the city of Poquoson.
Thank you for everything you're doing for us.
happy to have you with us, and appreciate it.
Thank you very much. That concludes special presentations, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Okay, that takes us to audience for visitors, and I'll ask if anyone in the audience wishes to address council on anything. Okay, see no one. So we'll go to item E, approval of minutes for a regular meeting, May the 29th, 2012.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes for the regular meeting of May 29, 2012.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Wiggins?
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilman Bernal?
Aye.
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford?
Abstain.
And Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 4-0 with one abstention.
Okay, now we'll open the public hearings, and we'll start out with the request for a conditional use permit by Donald and Laurie Krantz for construction of a covered deck on an existing pier at 16 Henley's Way.
All right, Karen Holloway will present for staff.
Good evening. This is a request for a conditional use permit that was considered by Planning Commission at its June 18th, 2012 meeting. This request is due to a medical condition of Mr. Krantz. His doctor has advised him, because of an ongoing medical condition, that he should stay out of direct sunlight as much as possible. It makes it difficult for him to fully enjoy his waterfront property, and therefore he has determined that it would benefit him to have a covered pier to provide the protection necessary for spending time outdoors. A joint permit application was submitted, which is required for all water-related activity. That was submitted to the Virginia Marine Resource Commission on May 4th, 2012, and then subsequently forwarded to the City of Poquoson, which is one of the receiving agencies for joint permit applications, known as JPAs. Although state law allows covered docks or gazebos measuring up to 400 square feet in size to be constructed over state water, Article 5, Section 5-212 of the City Code specifies that structures over water other than piers and covered boat slips are permitted with a conditional use permit. In other words, if this were a covered boat slip that fit within the parameters of 16 feet wide by 36 feet long, it would be approved by City Code. But because this is a covered deck and is another type of structure, it does require approval of City Council. Also, VMRC, even though this is permitted by right, because it's less than 400 square feet, VMRC does consider applications that have protests, and this one did have a protest from an adjacent property owner. So at this time, VMRC is awaiting the approval or the decision of City Council before moving forward with a public hearing of their own. Okay. This was advertised in the Daily Press on May 31st and June 7th, 2012, and adjacent property owners were notified by memorandums dated and mailed on May 5th, 2012. This is a look at the site. The applicants reside in the cul-de-sac of the Lyons Landing subdivision off of Pasture Road. The property lies near the mouth of Lyons Creek, which is a tributary of Bennett Creek. It's currently developed with a single-family home and a pier measuring 5 feet wide by 128 feet long with a 5 by 31 L head. The covered deck will be octagonal in shape. It is a 20 by 20, but when you cut the corners off of it, it will measure a total of 300 square feet. It will be open-sided with a safety rail on all sides and a bench on 3 sides. The asphalt shingled roof will be constructed at a 12-12 pitch with a maximum height of 5 feet in the center. As I said, there was a protest to this application. The protest came from the owners of 26 Rosewood Lane. Their concerns are basically 3 concerns. One of them is that it would block their currently unobstructed view of the mouth of Bennett Creek and Cow Island beyond that. Secondly, that it could become a hazard if during a storm if it was demolished and tossed about. And thirdly, that it could set a precedent for future covered piers in the city. To go back over the required approvals, the joint permit application is sent to VMRC, but it is dispersed to several different agencies. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers reviews JPAs for potential impact to channel traffic to ensure that boaters retain unobstructed movement through the waterway. A regional permit 17 was created several years ago by the Corps of Engineers to expedite permits for piers and roof structures if qualified. If they meet certain parameters, they're automatically qualified. This request does meet their requirements, so therefore no additional permits are required. As I said before, the state permits covered decks and gazebo structures up to 400 square feet by right, provided no property owners object. In this case, there was an objection. A VMRC commission meeting will be scheduled for public hearing pending the decision of City Council. And although the city does not typically regulate activities over state-owned bottom, it does regulate the roof size of covered boat slips and requires a conditional use permit for any other proposed roof structures. Covered boat slips must be open-sided by code. Open-sided structures having a gable, gambrel, or hip-style shingled roof with a minimum pitch of 412 and measuring no larger than 18 feet in width by 36 feet in length, measured from the eave line. The maximum height of the structure shall be no higher than 15 feet above mean high water. Occupancy or storage above the ceiling joist shall be prohibited. As I said before, were this an application for an open-sided covered boat slip, it would fit within the parameters with the exception of being 2 feet wider than the 18-foot allowed. But it would be substantially shorter than what is allowed. And pending the outcome of this public hearing, the city's Environmental Development Plan Review Committee would review the application as they do all JPAs to ensure that there are no permanent impacts to the 100-foot RPA buffer, Resource Protection Area buffer, during construction of the covered deck. And finally, a building permit would be required if approved. The building permit will ensure that the structure is built according to code and safety inspections would be performed. Since there is a concern that the structure could impede the view of adjacent property owners, staff recommends that any approval of a conditional use permit restrict future enclosure of the structure to make it as unobtrusive as possible. This application was presented to Planning Commission on the 18th, and Planning Commission voted to recommend approval by a vote of 5-0. There is going to be a presentation by Mrs. Forrest of 26 Rosewood Lane, and the applicants and their contractor are also in the audience to answer any questions.
Any questions for Karen? You said this will automatically go to VMRC because there's a protest.
If it's approved tonight, it'll automatically go through public hearing with them.
Okay.
I think I might want to ask my question after I hear from the other people.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Karen, do you know the distance from the Crances Pier to the Forest property along the shoreline?
I don't know the actual distance there. I don't know the distance from pier to pier.
Okay.
There. This is a look at them looking up the creek.
Okay, so if there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak to council?
There's a sketch.
Good evening. My name is Kay Forrest. I live at 26 Rosewood Lane. My husband and I would like to protest the building of this covered deck at the end of their pier. This is a view of their pier from our property. Next slide. Our first opposition is that it will block our view. This is a line of sight from our dining room and bedroom. It looks out to Cow Island across the Crances Pier. Next slide. This is just a repetition of their building design to show how tall it is. Next slide. Here I have tried to show you the line of sight. I would also like to say the one in the lower left is about, it's an enhanced picture obviously, but it is also the lens length that most mirrors the human eye. I've taught photography. I was a high school teacher, and I taught journalism, including photojournalism. So this view is very close to what we see as we sit on our dock. I have tried to represent the pier, although I couldn't get it clear inside with the roof. I didn't have enough time to do that. It is also an approximated size. It could be off a little bit, either larger or smaller, but that gives you a fairly good representation of what I think it would be. The upper right just gives you a more wide-angle view. It also shows you that we have a number of trees on our property and the adjacent property, which belongs to our father-in-law, my father-in-law, Steve's father, currently with no building there. according to the Chesapeake Bay Act, we can't take out any of those trees. So our main view of Cow Island from that part is what we see over their pier. If we go out onto our pier, yes, we have a wonderful view. We go further out into the yard, but from the house itself, that's it. Next slide. This is a picture of what the area, a similar view, looked like during Isabel. We were there. That is not the highest the water was. The water got up to within about 8 inches of coming into our house, which is 9 feet above a mean low, right? So it was just a few inches from that level. The Crances Pier was there. Their property had not been developed at that time, but the Tudors owned the property, and they did have the pier out there. You will be able to see it in other pictures. This was one of the worst points of the storm, but not exactly the highest water level. But it shows we were there the entire time. The water comes up the creek. At the Planning Commission, Mr. Krantz suggested that possibly damage went from south to north, but very rarely does any wind of any strength come that direction. It comes from the Chesapeake Bay up the creek. Next one, please. This pier, our dock, actually floated up during the storm based on the wind direction and the height of the waves. We are assuming that it floated over the pier that was there at the time. Had there been any kind of other structure out there, something of this nature would have certainly destroyed it during those strong winds. We got a lot of debris, and we did lose trees. Next slide, please. We feel like that where the location of these, of the Crances Pier plus our pier, we're right at the mouth. There's nothing blocking the wind. There are no trees, there are no land masses to help mitigate the wave action, and we strongly feel that if we have another storm, especially like Isabel, it could do severe damage. Yes, if the piers are maintained, there's less likelihood of that, but it's a direct line of fire, if you will, into our dining room. Next slide. This is after a nor'easter in October while their property was being built, and the yellow circle shows how this is after, as the water was receding. Steve and his father were cleaning up debris. You can see the tops of the pier and see how we've had a number of these storms in the last couple of years, and their pier is going to get an extreme amount of action, and theirs gets the wave action before ours gets it. Next, please. So we also are hoping you won't set a precedent. There really aren't very many, if any, covered decks in Poquoson. We feel that they really do hamper the view. Even there was the public notice in the paper, but letters were only sent out, as we know it, to 3 neighbors: us, my father-in-law, and the people, I'm assuming it was the people on the other side of Mr. Krantz, and that's actually an unoccupied home. So there's no one there living there now. None of the people across the creek were given any notice other than if they read it in the newspaper. That would be the only notice they got. I feel like it would really inhibit the view and create a hazard for everyone up the creek from them. So I would hope that you will not approve this. I feel for Mr. Krantz and his medical condition. I do understand skin cancer. My father-in-law has had it. I know other people who have had it. It's not pleasant. But there are other ways than building a permanent structure that he could do. There are umbrellas. There are a lot of things he can wear. Our biggest recommendation would be a temporary type of tent structure that could be erected at the end of his pier. We have one. We've used it not on our pier because our pier is not as big as his, but we've used it in the yard, and it's fine. It comes in when there's weather. We feel there are a lot of things he could do other than build a permanent structure that impedes and endangers others. He says he wants to enjoy the outside and fish with his grandchildren. I can appreciate that. I have grandchildren myself. But I think he can do it without a permanent structure. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Forrest? Thank you, Ms. Forrest. Anyone else?
Karen?
Yes.
I do have a question.
Okay.
On a couple of your view graphs back, where you showed your pier had floated up.
Right.
Was the pier in the foreground the Krantz's pier?
The pier in the background,
Yeah.
yes, that's the Krantz's
Okay.
pier.
Thank
Yes. That, by the way, was a complete intact deck, over 20 feet long, that came in. We tried to get people to see if they wanted to come claim it and float it back to wherever it came from, but we didn't do it.
Sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Don Krantz, and I do live at 16 Henley's Way. And we are requesting to put a covered decking at the end of our pier. And we went before the Planning Commission a week ago. I think one of their members pointed out very bluntly about the fact that if this was just to house a boat or protect a boat, they wouldn't even be hearing the conversation. It would have been not even brought before them. But this is a little bit unique, I guess. And to address some of the things, with the picture right there, you asked about the dock. I don't know if it's a deck or a dock that washed up there, but you can see our pier is the one in the background there. And it's my understanding that Isabel was one of the worst storms in about 100 years to hit this area. And my pier is still standing without any damage to it. And I would think if that came over top my pier, even with the high water, that it would have done some damage with the size of that decking. But, and that pier has been there for probably 30-some years because my son-in-law grew up in that area and used to play in that, on that pier, and he's in his 30s now. So the pier has been there for a very long time, I guess. The safety issues, I don't know where that came from. I'm not an expert, but it's certainly washed up from someplace. But, to say that it came over our pier, I don't know if it can be accurate, quite honestly. I think from a safety standpoint, if I had a boat out there that was on a lift and a storm came and took that boat, it could do a lot more damage to someone's property than a covered structure at the end. And at last week's meeting, the contractor was there, and he's here again tonight to address any specific questions about the construction of the covered area at the end of the pier. If you could you go back to the picture with the double pictures on it, please? Because I think that kind of shows a little bit too. When we talk about the view obstruction, as Ms. Forrest stated, the one on the left clearly is enhanced because you can see the post there is from their deck on the side of their house. And you would have to zoom it pretty much because that gives the impression that there's only one tree in the way from their deck to our pier, and that appears that is very close to us. I think one of the gentleman's questions, how far from one pier to the other, I don't know for sure, but I would think it's got to be 500 feet or more, from their pier to our pier. But the picture on the right gives a more accurate view from their deck to our pier. And it's kind of got the image of a house there that shows a enclosed construction there, which clearly ours would not be. But I think that more accurately shows the view from their deck to our pier. And you can see there's not one tree, but there's many trees that are in that are on that's their own trees that are blocking that view. Certainly not the wide open view that kind of implies. As was stated, this request is not about, we have a bench at the end of our pier right now. You know, this isn't about just sitting out there to look at the view. This is for health reasons. My doctor has said, I do have a form of skin cancer that requires me to avoid direct sunlight for long periods of time. As mentioned, I do have 4 grandchildren that are young and another one on the way, and I would like to be able to enjoy time with them, to be able to fish off my pier, and I don't think that's asking too much. But there isn't a year that goes by that I don't have to have some of these spots removed through procedures, and this is something I just have to live with. And I guess what I'm asking the council to do is to please consider giving the same protection to a person as we do to a boat that's out there. And again, if this was just about a boat slip or covered area, we wouldn't even be here having this conversation. Thank you.
Any questions?
I have a question for Karen then.
Go ahead.
And this is regarding, it's a special use permit that's required, a conditional use permit. I'm thinking this is one of the things where Ms. Holloway might need to be careful what you ask for, because my thinking is that if we decline the gazebo, that a covered boat slip might go up, and whether it has a boat in it or not, it would be just as usable. Can we make one of the conditions be that if we allow the gazebo to go in, and I know you've recommended that it be not allowed to be enclosed, can we make a condition that they not build a boat slip as well? Because that would be unfortunate, I think.
I guess that's a legal question. It is allowed by right, boats to cover boats.
Can we make a condition that by right they cannot do something that is otherwise by right?
You can put a conditional on the gazebo, and that condition can be not that you can't build, but if you do build as a matter of right, other structures, you'll have to demolish the gazebo. Okay. It can be there as long as the conditions are met. You say it's a different way of saying what you're saying, but you're permitting the gazebo to be there as long as you comply with these conditions. If you fail to comply with these conditions, then the gazebo would have to be removed because it doesn't meet the conditions for the approval.
That's what I would lean towards, I think. Does that sound reasonable to you? Did they discuss that at the Planning Commission at all, or?
No, they didn't discuss that.
I'm sorry, just one other thing that was brought up, a question was about who we talked to about approval of this. We did talk to both people on both sides of Forest, and there is a house for sale, but we had to talk to the owner there. But we also, directly across from us, contacted that owner there, and they signed, if you have the packet, it's in there as well, that they did sign an approval of it without any reservation on that too.
While you're up, did you consider a temporary shelter? Was that a consideration? Did you not?
Well, with a temporary shelter, I guess I would be concerned because there are winds that if that isn't built the right way, I think that's going to have the potential for a lot more damage, and I guess you're right. Could we do, just say we're putting a boat slip in and have it? We certainly could do that, and it would be a much larger roof, but we didn't want to go that route. We don't have an intention of doing that, but again, if you have to tear it down, my inkling would be whoever would put a boat slip up would have, I believe you can have a little bit of an extension to have a covered deck area within so many square feet, I believe, But again, I'm not an expert, I have a contractor to do that.
May I ask this question while you're there?
Yes, sir.
The Councilwoman Crawford made a suggestion that if we put a condition there that such that if you were to add a boat slip and then cover that, then that would be cause to tear down the gazebo, okay? But if you didn't put a covered boat slip there, then you meet the conditions and could have the gazebo. Would you be opposed to that?
I would not be opposed to that. I have no intention of doing a boat slip, at this point at all. I don't have a boat. I have a son-in-law that has a boat, but he certainly doesn't house it there. That pier, if you can tell, at one point it was designed or it housed probably 5 boats. It's got enough pylons there to be able to do that. But we have no intention of doing that, so I would not be opposed to agreeing to just having that covered structure of the gazebo.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I guess we'll consider consideration by council. Any questions, comments, or motion?
You close the public hearing.
Okay, I'm sorry. We need to close the public hearing and then go into consideration by council. Motion?
You don't have to
You
do it.
I can just do it.
You just
Okay,
announce
so
it.
we'll
You
close the public hearing then and go to consideration by council.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution approving a conditional use permit to construct a covered deck on an existing pier, property located at 16 Henley's Way, Poquoson tax map parcel number 12324, with the additional condition that if a boat lift is built, that it not be covered, and if it is covered, then the gazebo would have to be demolished.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
Is that appropriate phrasing, Wayne? Then, and of course, all upkeep on the gazebo will have to be, there are codes that will require it to be sound and neat and clean and all that, so.
Ms. Wade?
Tracy, are you adding to that motion?
No, I was just, that's
Just making a
standard.
statement.
I'm making a
Okay.
statement that we would expect that anyway.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Bernal.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, well, we'll move to our second public hearing, which is ordinance amending Article 3 of the zoning ordinance reference relief of required side yard setback for non-conforming uses and structures in single-family residential districts. We discussed this last meeting, and this is the, I believe, second time that we talked about it. So we'll open the public hearing and ask if there's any.
Would you like Kevin to
Yes,
summarize?
I would.
Vice Mayor, honorable members of council, we're familiar with this by now. Essentially, we have put together some language that would allow lots not meeting the minimum lot requirement of the districts they're located in, single-family districts, to seek an allowance, some relief of the side setback requirements. It's gone before you as a concept back in March. It's been through Planning Commission as a work session item, BZA as an informational item. Planning Commission looked at it at their May 21st meeting and unanimously approved it. And not much has changed. It's 10-foot side setback allowance for these non-conforming lot width lots. And across the board, it will be 10 feet in all districts from RS to R2. The big language change that we've seen was a recommendation by the Board of Zoning Appeals, and that's that essentially to limit any non-conforming lot to get undue allowance or benefit from this section. It limits building width. They're not allowed to have a building wider than what would be allowed on a minimally conforming lot within their district, basically holding them to that same standard. So with that being said, I can answer any questions you may have about this language.
Any questions,
Mr.
Councilman
Vice
Green?
Mayor, if I might, if I'm not out of order, I'd like to make 2 comments if I could. And my reason being, Kevin, I apologize in advance for bringing this up at the last minute, but I'm a slow thinker, and after thinking about this, I'd like to see us cover 2 things that I think we've inadvertently missed. One is that I think we may inadvertently cause a corner lot owner some undue unfairness or hardship, in that the way this is written, if a property owner owns a corner lot that faces one street and meets the minimum lot width, but on the other street does not, and if that property owner decided he wanted his house to face the street where he complies, then he's under the restriction in the western precinct of a 20-foot setback, 20-foot side yard setback. Whereas if he turns it the other way, which he doesn't want to in this proposal, he gets a 10-foot distance side yard setback. And I think it's totally inadvertent, but I would like to see us put some kind of language in there that says if a corner lot is non-conforming in one direction, it's non-conforming throughout. If that property owner wanted to face his house the other way and doesn't have to face the 20-foot setback. I'd also like to see us put language that ties it to the minimum lot size, because I know when I was on the BZA, we got an inordinate number of eastern precinct requests because of the smallest of the lots there. The lot size now is 26,400 or something like that. So I'd like to not only tie it to the frontage, but to the lot size, so that if your lot is less than the 26,000, then you are non-conforming and can also take advantage of the 10-foot side yard setback.
How do we determine if a lot's conforming or not? In where one side and another, how do you measure that?
Well, we had a good debate about this last week. From a zoning standpoint, there are varying degrees of nonconformity. You can have a nonconforming lot width. You can have a nonconforming lot size. For this ordinance alone, if you have a nonconforming lot width, substandard lot frontage, for instance, in the RS district, which requires a 26,700 square foot lot, about a half an acre, you're required to have 120 feet of lot frontage. Your lot has to be at the setback line 120 feet. This is to help, in that particular zoning district, any lot under 120 feet. And we found, and we dug around with the lot size issue, and we quickly found out that yes, there are some lot size issues, particularly in the Eastern Precinct. Many of the Eastern Precinct lots are substandard. I just bought a home here. My lot is severely substandard. But that link is not consistent, and it's not going to solve the side yard setback issue. Once you get to the lot width, that's when you're dealing with these side yards, directly anyway. So after beating around with this for about 3 or 4 months and taking it out for comments, we've come up with this language that strictly ties it to the lot width. The nonconformity in this situation is the lot width, and we would allow relief of that side yard setback based on your nonconformity with the lot width.
But if it's on the corner, either side non-conforming, is that what you do? Or?
Yeah, right now, as proposed, there's no language addressing corner lots. If you have a non-conforming side, for instance, corner lots, they have 2 front yards, each yard facing the street. They don't have rear yards per our definition. They have 2 side yards. So they would have relief on the side yard backing completely opposite of that non-conforming front yard, front width. That's how it's constructed right now.
But see, if the homeowner wanted to face his house the other way, he's
Right.
going to be stuck with the 20-foot setback.
What determines what's the front? I mean, there may, like Buddy says, you may have a homeowner who says, gee whiz, if I put the front of my house over there, I'll never get in and out the driveway, and it will be unsafe. If I put the front over here, it would be a safe thing to do. And so, what determines the front? And if you make that the front, then will it apply?
If it's facing a street right now, it's considered a front yard. If it was in a traffic circle, it would have 4 front yards. And that's the way the ordinance is constructed now.
So if you had a lot that was 120 feet on one side and 80 feet on the other, then you could determine that the 80 foot is the front yard of your lot and now it's non-conforming?
Well, the 80 foot and the 120 foot would be front yards, and they would have 2 side yards. So there would be no rear yards on those properties. There would be 2 front yards and 2 side yards.
So we need some special language for the
We
corners.
do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is the answer.
And
Yeah,
what
and my
Councilman
reason
Green
for
proposed?
the size of the lot is that you could conceivably have a 120-foot wide lot, but it's not deep enough to make up 26,700 square feet. So I feel like those people need relief also.
Valid point.
Comments?
I guess my comment is this. If the council feels after your public hearing, well, you have several options. You could decide you want to proceed to the public hearing or not. You've advertised it. There's at least one person here I think wants to speak to us. I think you should do that. That's my recommendation.
Well,
after that, if you feel that the ordinance is not acceptable, you can either amend it here or remand it to the Planning Commission to study a specific question or several questions. Either one, I would say the latter option is really the better option unless you've got specific language that's clear right now, which I'm sensing that we don't have. Better to send it back to the Planning Commission would be my recommendation.
And that, if I could, that's why I wanted to make the comments first, so that anybody speaking to this from the public could speak to even my comments also. But like Randy, I think we should send it back to the Planning Commission, get their input, and look at it again.
If you will, staff in anticipation did draft some alternate language, if you all would like to look it over.
Thank you.
The highlighted
You've been
sections.
reading my mind, Kevin.
The highlighted sections are the ones that will be different.
Mr. Green, after you and I spoke last week, I met with the staff and I said, tell me how our ordinance addresses this issue. And if it doesn't address Mr. Green's issue, give me the amendment that does. And if it does, give me the amendment that doesn't. So this is that. If after your public hearing you find this, you're comfortable with this language, I think you're good to move on. If you're not, you can either table and study it yourself or remand it, whichever you think is appropriate.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you all.
Mr. Ben. Well, we'll go ahead with the public hearing then and ask if anyone wishes to address the council on this topic. Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and have consideration by council as to what's your pleasure.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we send it back to the Planning Commission with this language and let them also consider the lot size as criteria for non-conforming.
Second.
So, okay, so we have a motion and a second. The lot size is simply a square foot.
Right.
One side and times the other side.
Right.
Okay. Any other discussion? Ms. Wick?
Councilwoman Crawford? Aye. Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Councilman Vernal?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman?
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, that gets us to unfinished business. And then the first item is ordinance amending the site plan ordinance, the subdivision ordinance, and the zoning ordinance to define and allow pervious surface. And this is the second reading. We talked about this last meeting.
Vice Mayor, we're not intending to do a staff report. However, if you would like one, we'd be pleased to.
Well, I don't know that we need that. Any questions or comments from council? Okay, do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt an ordinance amending the site plan ordinance by revising Article 1, Sections 1-04 to include a definition for pervious surface and Section 1-08B6 to allow pervious pavement in commercial parking areas.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Wiggin?
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Councilman Bernal?
Aye.
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Freeman?
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
Is she going to present this? Or?
Now you need to go on and adopt the ordinance.
There's three of them.
Oh, okay.
ordinances total.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Okay.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I move that we adopt an ordinance amending the subdivision ordinance by revising Article 2 to include a definition for pervious surface.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Councilwoman Crawford?
Aye.
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Councilman Bernal?
Aye.
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman?
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, and the third part?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I move that we adopt an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance by revising Article 1, General Provisions, Section 1 through 3.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Wiggin?
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Councilman Bernal?
Aye.
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman?
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, ma'am. And now, that gets us to number 2, resolution approving the city's participation in the VML pool for LODA benefits. This was briefed to us last meeting. So any additional questions or comments? Any questions for Teresa? Okay, do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution to participate in Line of Duty Act Fund pool administered by Virginia Municipal League.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Wiggin?
Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilman Bernal?
Aye.
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman?
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, that gets us into item H, new business. Ordinance amending the sewer use ordinance, reduced fees and exemptions for the elderly and disabled, and this is a first reading. And this is pretty much, are you going to brief that, Graham?
Yep.
or-
Graham
Okay,
will
go
brief
ahead.
the 1 and 2.
Okay, while you're up, the second one is ordinance amending the solid waste ordinance, reducing fees and exemptions for elderly and disabled. Okay.
Mr. Vice Mayor and honorable members of council, I was going to talk about both of them at the same time, so thank you for doing that. Hopefully this will be one of the easier things you get to hear tonight because it is fairly simple. In my mind, it's generally a housekeeping measure that is we're using to establish ordinances that we can use to consistently administer the 3 similar programs that we have with regards to exemption eligibility. The 3 similar programs are the real estate tax relief for the elderly, the sewer, which is tonight, and the solid waste, which is also tonight. The application was streamlined a few years ago such that my office administers the programs for the city on the same application. The ordinance that's before you tonight allows for annual consumer price index changes to household income that qualifies the individuals that are applying for these programs. We basically want to make sure that the income qualifications that we're looking at for those that apply are consistent across the three programs. And these ordinances tonight before you will allow for that consistent administration of these programs. The one thing that I heard, and I apologize to Mr. Wheeler and Ms. Wiggins, but I noticed it said first reading. It was my intention that this would be something that we could do effective July 1st, since that's when the billing process starts, but I don't know how that is done. Otherwise, we will have a slight issue with regards to those programs qualifying at the same level with the tax relief for the elderly. So I apologize to y'all for bringing that up tonight. And that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Now, does this mean that this will automatically take place every year from now?
That's correct.
We won't have to vote on this
That's
every year?
correct,
Gotcha.
for all of them. Yes, sir.
Amen.
Could we say as effective as of July 1st, add that to the...
You can dispense with the second
Dispense
reading.
with the second reading.
Okay.
Include in your motion, dispense with the second reading. But one other issue that you have in your ordinances that I don't think you mentioned, was the changing in the amount from 42,000 to 44,400. So you're increasing the amount of income.
That's correct. And that's what has happened with the real estate tax relief program. That increased from $42,000 to $44,400 based upon the consumer price index that we implemented this year, which was already in an ordinance format for us to look at effective January 1st of this year. Okay.
Okay, questions for Graham? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor, if you're going to do this, just make sure we don't have any complication. I would suggest, as part of the motion, you waive first reading or waive second reading, whichever is the more appropriate term.
Dispense with second reading.
Dispense with second reading.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Poquoson, Virginia by revising Chapter 82, Article 2, Section 82-40B6 pertaining to sewer service charges, and we dispense with the second reading.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Comment? Ms. Wiggins, please.
Councilwoman Crawford. Aye. Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Bernal.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, and on the solid waste ordinance.
Mayor, I move we adopt an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Poquoson, Virginia by revising Chapter 66, Article 3, Section 66-63 pertaining to garbage fee exemptions for elderly and disabled persons, and dispense with the second reading.
Have a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Wiggins?
Councilwoman Crawford. Aye. Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Bernal.
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, ma'am. And now the next item, 3, is law enforcement mutual aid agreement.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I'll let the police chief go home in anticipation that you would not have a significant question about this. This is an amendment to our existing mutual aid agreement to include the town of Windsor.
Questions, comments? Do we have a motion?
I guess I have a question, comment, which shouldn't be too difficult. I'm guessing that the reason we have to vote on this is because we're a party to the first agreement, so it's not so much that we will be interacting with Windsor.
It's extraordinarily unlikely.
Yes.
Just included it.
Right.
You know, for the citizens at home, this agreement as president includes Chesapeake, Franklin, Hampton, Newport News, Norfolk, Poquoson, Portsmouth, Suffolk, Virginia Beach, Williamsburg, James City, Smithfield, Accomack, Gloucester, Isle of Wight, Northampton, and York. So this would add Windsor.
And when we may, is something like a disaster that happens just to them? and doesn't touch us at all, and we're able to send a piece of equipment or something,
And vice versa.
or vice versa. Right.
Just like the fire in York County.
Yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
exactly the same thing.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I move adoption of a resolution adopting a law enforcement mutual aid agreement.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Ms. Wiggins, please.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Bernal.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, our next item number 4 was resolution making appointments to various boards and commissions. Does anyone have names to insert?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I make a resolution that we make appointments to various boards and commissions with the following names inserted. For the Wetlands Board, Mr. William H. Clark and Mr. Thomas L. Carlson, whose terms will expire June 30th, 2017. For the Workforce Development Consortium, Mr. Frank Krieger, and I will volunteer to be his assistant unless somebody else would graciously take my place. For the Hampton Roads Plan and District Commission, W. Eugene Hunt, and for the Colonial Behavioral Health, Ann L. Rollins.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? We have a motion and a second. Ms. Wiggins?
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilman Bernal.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
Just a quick comment. These folks have done us a really good job. I think they're all reappointments, and I'm sure they'll continue to serve. Okay, our item number 5 is ordinance making additional appropriations and transfers for fiscal year 2011-2012.
Vice Mayor, members of council, the ordinance before you makes a number of appropriations and transfers. I would note a few things to you, and between myself and our finance director, Teresa, we can answer any questions you may have. But I would note to you that this is, as we prepare to close the fiscal year, this is really where you do the meat of your balancing entries, where you address problems that you may have had in your operational budget. And I would point out to you that there are only 3 of those, 2 of which were completely beyond our control, and 1 of which was building maintenance. And we know, given our building maintenance cutbacks and constrained CIP, that to be off by a few $1,000s in that area is, in some ways, good news. I would note to you that of all these items, of which there's more than a dozen, well over half are donations and grants. Our staff is diligent about these things, and it continues to pay dividends for us, whether it's fire supplies, supporting the CERT team, library donations. This is one of the ways that we're stretching our budget. And the other way is to stay within our budget, as evidenced by the fact that just about every department was in budget, and in fact, the fire department did such an outstanding job of managing their budget. They're actually the donor source for these small amounts of money we need to transfer from one to the other. So I commend Robert. He's not here any longer, but I commend him nonetheless. If you have any more detailed questions, I'm sure Teresa would be pleased to answer them for you.
Just one, Randy.
Sir.
Under the Smart Speed trailer, I take it that's the trailer that tells you how fast you're going?
Yes, sir.
It will record the speeds this time, I hope?
That is my understanding.
Okay.
Would say that was our understanding last time.
Yeah, right.
Fair enough.
Our understanding is a better understanding.
Right.
Total worst case scenario, we will connect the thing that does do that we own to the other, but I believe it takes care of it.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Vice Mayor, I move that we adopt an ordinance making additional appropriations and transfers for fiscal year 2011 and 12.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just point out that we did put a corrected one at your places. There was one item under expenditures on the second page the Public Works Administration building was added, so that's the one you are adopting.
Okay, Ms. Wiggins?
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Bernal.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, we're down to item number 6, resolution canceling the June 23rd, 2012 council meeting. Did you want to comment on that?
Yes, sir. Mr. Vice Mayor, members of council, this item was brought to you at the suggestion of the mayor, who wished to bring forward the idea of potentially canceling your July meeting, noting both vacation plans of several folks and also an anticipated light agenda for July. I would note to you that whether or not you approve this or not, it is possible in July that we will need a special meeting to address one or more economic development issues. And obviously, we can have a special meeting on any subject if a time-sensitive need manifests itself.
Okay. Comments? Motion?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution canceling the July 23rd, 2012 council meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Wiggins?
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Bernal.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, and that gets us down to comments of the city manager.
We only have one, Mr. Vice Mayor. I just commend publicly once again Mrs. Wiggins for her 50-year wedding anniversary. And the only thing that could make 50 years better is seeing Donnie and Marie while on your 50-year anniversary trip. And anyone that's interested in seeing pictures, she has some great pictures of her with them. And that's all I have.
Well, congratulations. Okay, council directives, Mr. Southall?
Yeah, I'd like to give a special thanks to Jim Beach and his wife for their award for the humanitarian acts, and the city employees for their performance awards. Also like to welcome the new officers, Adam Stevens, Matt Marlowe, and John Foster, and thank Cecily Bradley, the engineering volunteer, for doing an excellent job. Ellen's told me about the fine work she did, and I apologize, I did not catch the other volunteer's name. Can somebody help me out with that? Okay. And thank her for her excellent efforts also. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll go down to the Bernal.
Two things very quickly. First of all, I want to thank Lauren for that very thorough job that she did on researching the use of alternative fuels in Newport News. I really hadn't planned on giving you that big a task, but it was very, very well done and very informative, so thank you very much. The other thing, I just want to note the improvement in the response time on the turn signal from Hunts Neck Road and Yorktown Road. That is much appreciated for those of us who make that turn frequently. It is greatly improved.
I'll second that.
Me too. Councilwoman Crawford?
I'd like to echo the former comment, but also it just came to my attention that we don't have archives of the board, all of the board and commission meetings. I know that they do meet here largely, and that it's possible to tape them and archive them. So I would like to ask if you can look into possibly
Talking about
doing that.
the planning commission specifically?
Specifically the planning commission, but any board and commission, I think. It's just,
With respect to the planning commission, since we have staff here anyway,
yes.
and we already have on TV, our additional cost would be minimal to none.
Mhm.
With ones that we don't put on TV, then we need to pay staff to come here and put them on TV.
Okay, well,
So
how about
could-
the ones that are minimal cost then?
The
The planning commission.
I think you'd asked that question last week. It made perfect sense to us once you asked it, and we are moving in that direction.
Oh, great, great. And I'm sure Mr. Green will mention it, there's a food bank distribution tomorrow. He can give you the details.
Betcha.
Okay, Councilman Green?
A couple of things. The food bank is tomorrow. I'd like to remind everybody it'll be at the old municipal building from 10 to 2. This month, it's hosted by the city staff. I'd like to thank them in advance for their help doing that. So everybody that's qualified, please come out and take advantage of the food bank. Also like to thank Dave and Charity for the wonderful business breakfast at the Yacht Club. That was well received, well attended, and put on quite nicely. So thank you for that. The other thing, Randy, in my trips down Emmaus Road, I have noticed the traffic markings are very erratic and don't really make a whole lot of sense. They have markings very close to Yorktown Road, then halfway down the road they've got some more markings, and then almost at the end they have a few more. The next time we have Spivey in town, maybe you and Ellen could take a look at that and see if maybe we need some more, maybe a center line and at some points a sideline where they don't have curb and gutter.
Absolutely, sir. Glad to look
It's
at
really kind of hodgepodge down there right now.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Look at it.
Okay, a couple of things. Our city manager was just elected president of the Local Government Managers Association. What that is a group of city managers or county managers all over the state, and they elected him to be their president. So I think that not only speaks well for him, but kind of speaks well for Poquoson, getting their name out there. So we don't mind sharing you with the rest of the state.
I appreciate that. It was actually president-elect. I'm now in the queue to be next.
Oh, okay. But you're going to be.
It took 7 years to get to this position.
Okay.
Literally.
The non-city sponsored workboat race was this weekend, and I understand there were 42 race entries and about 60 boats total, including the spectator boats, the 42 race boats plus the spectator boats. And good crowd. So I think they did a good job. And just in general, just living here in this town with the people that we have running the city, doing the work for the city, it's just a great place to live. And I just want to say that every once in a while. Okay, any second thoughts? Okay, we have closed session scheduled, and if we can get a motion for that.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we convene a closed session pursuant to sections 2.2-3711A1 and 2.2-3711A5 to discuss a personnel matter, i.e. vehicle allocation and a prospective business where no previous announcement has been made of the interest of the business to locate in the community, i.e. economic development project not yet publicly announced.
Second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Wiggins?
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Bernal.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, so we will go to closed session.